frame of weathered bone on which had once clung muscle and sinew, hanging on a gibbet these 3 years. It had slipped from its bonds at least once, he had been informed with some relish by a corporal who claimed to have been present, but it had been strung together and rehung. A warning, the corporal had said in his strong West Country accent, to them Scotch who might still fancy a bit of rebellion. Greenway knew not what the man had done to deserve such a fate, apart from being a treasonous Jacobite, which Greenway supposed was enough, but he cared little. Standing sentinel over a dead man's bones was merely a duty, a reminder to take better care of his weapon in future. And yet he was unnerved. His old mum back in Spitalfields had filled his head with tales of ghosts and revenge beyond the grave, and in the black Highland night he had imagined he heard those bones clattering as they climbed from the gibbet to repay whatever wrong it believed had been done. His thick coat notwithstanding, the breeze seemed to cut through him as if he was not there, then swirl around the wooden gibbet like an old friend come to pay its respects. The chain creaked against the post like a cry for attention, and, despite himself, the young soldier turned, if only to ensure that his night terrors had not become real. He saw the old woman for the first time. She was standing at the foot of the gibbet, gazing up as if in supplication. He had not heard her ascend the hill, and thus startled, he swung his brown bess to a more ready position. "Step back there," he commanded, putting as much authority into his voice as he could muster, despite the chill rippling his words. Nonetheless, they were weak and fearful, and they wilted in the waft of the breeze. The old hag neither acknowledged his words, nor in turn paid heed. She continued to stand at the foot of the skeleton, staring at it as if it were Christ on the cross, and not some filthy rebel who defied his king. The young private considered this. Did not their Saviour defy authority in the Holy Land? Was he not himself a rebel? Such thoughts were for scholars, though, and not a conscript raised in the stews of London, so he thrust them from his mind. He took a few paces closer to the woman, endeavouring to avoid gazing upon the bones swaying in the breeze. His weapon was braced across his chest, ready to level should he feel the need, the very act stiffening his resolve and injecting steel into his voice. "D'ye hear me, woman? Step back there." Her head turned then, and he saw how old she was. Her face, framed by the tattered woolen shawl, was crisscrossed by lines that cut deep into flesh, made leather by the attentions of too many winters. As her eyes fell on the musket he held across his chest like a shield, she gave him a small smile that was little more than the gaping of a small black maw, yet when she spoke, her voice was strong, but as cracked as her face. "Are ye feart, brave soldier?" "No, mother," he said gently as he lowered the weapon, his own mother's constant admonishments to show all women respect having nestled deeply in his soul. Peggy Greenway had not enjoyed much respect in her life, having been turned out at 14 by her mother to service the culls of Southwark. "You just cannot stand too close," he warned. "It is not safe." She glanced back at the gibbet, and her smile became sad. "Seamus would never harm me, not in life and never in death. We are bound by blood, him and I." Greenway had been in this wretched land long enough to know that Seamus was Scotch for James. The man who had once walked in those bones was named James Stewart, a traitorous murderer. He cared little about the man that was, but that much he knew. "You are kin to this man?" A gnarled hand, the joints bulging and distorted, tenderly caressed one bleached foot of the hanged man. "Aye, I am kin, as many are here in Appin, kin by blood and by marriage. But even if we were not, we would still have loved him, for he was a good man. Unlike those who led him to this end, and those who left him here to rot." Greenway was ill-equipped to debate the justice of the matter. "Even so, I cannot have you stand so close. The gibbet is not secure, and I have orders that no one must approach the—" He paused, his mind reaching for the correct word. "Remains." The woman's laugh was as sharp as the